They said they had proof, undeniable evidence that could end everything, but when the deadline hit, there was nothing. And now the truth is coming out. The story behind Hollywood's golden couple is cracking wide open secrets, control, and a web of illusion that might finally be collapsing before the entire world. They said they had evidence. They said they could prove that something big had been planned behind closed doors, that a certain Hollywood filmmaker had been unfairly targeted by a campaign designed to destroy his reputation, but when the court deadline arrived and the paperwork was due, there was nothing, no screenshots, no emails, no files, no proof, just whispers and shadows. And now the internet is beginning to catch on because a new report has surfaced painting a very different picture. And this time the names involved are the kind that make headlines. One outlet known for its celebrity coverage published a story that shook social media, claiming that one of Hollywood's most famous power couples might not be the golden pair everyone thought they were. The report describes a pattern of control and manipulation, and it begins long before the current controversy ever reached a courtroom. The article points to the days of a lifestyle brand that once promised authenticity and creative freedom. But according to former staff members, that dream was never real. They describe an environment where decisions were rewritten, where voices were silenced, and where one person allegedly called every shot, even as the public image suggested harmony and teamwork. Insiders claim that the real story behind that failed project wasn't about bad timing or lack of vision, but about control and ego, about someone who always needed to have the final word. And while the company eventually collapsed, its echoes can still be felt today, because the same patterns people described there are now appearing again in the ongoing legal drama surrounding that same Hollywood couple. It all ties together through a web of influence, strategy, and silence. And as the story spreads, more witnesses are stepping forward, saying that what looked like a simple disagreement between artists might actually be something much bigger. When the press first asked about the lawsuit, the representatives of the actor and his partner confidently stated that they had overwhelming evidence of a coordinated campaign against them, a series of messages, screenshots, and testimony that would allegedly prove everything. But when the legal discovery process ended, there was nothing. Not a single confirmed message, not a single verified document, and now the same team that once promised transparency is suddenly suggesting that the evidence was lost, deleted, or hidden somewhere in an app that erases messages automatically. A digital ghost story that no one can confirm. The claim itself has only deepened the mystery, leaving people to wonder, was there ever evidence at all, or was it simply a convenient narrative designed to buy time and sympathy? And as fans scroll through old interviews and recordings, the contradictions keep piling up, because not long ago, a resurfaced clip began circulating online showing one half of the couple describing moments on a movie set that sounded far from powerless. In the interview, the star casually mentioned that studio executives had begged for a certain song to be removed from a scene, but she refused and the song stayed in the final cut. Her exact words, "They begged me to take it out, and I said no." And suddenly the internet stopped and listened, because in that single sentence, the story everyone thought they knew started to crumble. The public had been told that she was the victim of a controlling creative environment, that she was silenced by others. Yet this recording suggested that she was the one making decisions, overriding producers, and steering the film. The contradiction is stunning, and as people compare timelines, the doubts grow stronger, because the same voice that once claimed to have been shut out seems to have been calling the shots all along. And now that interview is going viral, every frame replayed, analyzed, and debated, thousands of comments pouring in with people asking the same question. If she had the power to reject studio demands, then how could she have been the victim of someone else's control? This single revelation has set off a storm that no publicist can easily contain. And while the couple's representatives continue to insist that their case is based on facts, the missing evidence speaks louder than any statement could. In Hollywood, image is everything, and the illusion of control can be just as powerful as control itself. For years, the couple has perfected the art of narrative management. One plays the charming figure, the other, the misunderstood creative soul. Together, they project an image of wit, unity, and invincibility. But behind that carefully built brand, insiders whisper that every move is calculated, every headline managed, every interview rehearsed. And now, as the lawsuit falters, that image is beginning to crack, because the one thing no publicist can spin forever is the absence of truth. This is where the story becomes truly gripping, because while the headlines focus on court filings and leaked interviews, the real drama may be happening behind the scenes, with powerful teams scrambling to contain the fallout. One outlet described the current atmosphere around them as tense, saying that Public opinion is shifting fast. Fans who once defended them without question are now starting to analyze the inconsistencies, to connect the dots between the promises of overwhelming proof and the reality of none. And as the silence stretches, the questions only grow louder. What really happened on that set? Who is telling the truth? And why does it seem like every attempt to clarify only creates more confusion? What began as a case about reputational harm has transformed into something much more unpredictable, a test of credibility, authenticity, and trust. The same couple who once ruled red carpets with charm and humor now find themselves facing an audience that is no longer willing to take the performance at face value. And as more old clips resurface, as more witnesses speak quietly behind the scenes, one thing becomes clear: the illusion is slipping, and when illusions fade, what remains is the truth. Raw, unfiltered, and impossible to control. The silence around the missing evidence became louder than any public statement, because every time the couple's representatives tried to explain what happened, the story changed first. It was technical issues, then privacy concerns, then messages that had somehow disappeared from encrypted apps. And yet every new excuse only made the mystery feel deeper, like something bigger was hiding beneath the surface. Industry insiders began whispering that this was not just about one court case, but about an entire pattern of control that stretched across years and projects. The same names kept surfacing and the same behaviors were described: taking over creative processes, rewriting scripts, overriding directors, and then retreating behind charm. When things fell apart, it was a cycle that many in Hollywood had seen before, but few had dared to speak about publicly. And now that the walls were closing in, those same whispers were starting to spill into the open. A major entertainment outlet published an analysis suggesting that the couple's brand of carefully curated perfection had begun to fracture under its own weight. Because when your entire image depends on being adored, there is no room for real imperfection. One journalist described it as the burden of being flawless, a role so exhausting that it eventually consumes the person playing it. And that exhaustion might be what people are now seeing unfold on the biggest stage possible: court filings, leaked documents, statements, and counter-statements, all feeding a story that no longer feels polished but desperate. And the public can sense that desperation from the outside. It looks like a couple fighting for their reputation. But to those who have worked with them, the story sounds different. They describe a power dynamic built not on collaboration, but on control, on the need to dominate every decision, every narrative. Even when that control comes at the cost of creative freedom, one insider recalled how during a past project, ideas from others would be praised publicly, but privately dismantled and rewritten without credit. A pattern that bred resentment among staff and collaborators. The same source said that the charm was real, but it was also strategic. Always used to disarm, to persuade, to make people forget the tension simmering underneath. And now, as this new scandal unfolds, those memories are resurfacing. People are remembering the cracks they ignored because the smiles were brighter and the jokes were easier to believe, but charm can only hold for so long before the truth begins to leak out like light through a broken window. And the more people look, the more they find inconsistencies in statements, interviews, and behavior. The narrative that once felt airtight now looks fragile. Reporters are asking why so many insiders describe similar experiences across different projects, how so many accounts align around the same themes of micromanagement and pressure, and what that might reveal about the way this Hollywood partnership really operates. One story from the set of a recent documentary has been making rounds. The director described unexpected visits from a certain actor who was not supposed to be there, giving directions, making edits, and even promoting merchandise tied to the project before anyone else could approve it to the outside world. It looked like enthusiasm, but those who were there said it felt like a takeover. And when the actor was later asked about it during press appearances, the tone was defensive. The charm was still there, but the cracks showed a flash of irritation, a glimpse of the control that others had whispered about for years. Social media lit up with debates, fans defending their hero, critics pointing out contradictions, and industry veterans hinting that this was only the beginning. Because in Hollywood, reputations don't collapse overnight. They erode piece by piece until one day the mask simply falls. And when it does, there's no putting it back on now. People are starting to wonder how much of the couple's public image was ever real. The witty posts, the family jokes, the perfect interviews, were they genuine moments or part of a larger strategy to maintain control over how they were seen? A reputation built on charm can be powerful, But it's also fragile because once trust breaks, every smile starts to look rehearsed, and the audience begins to see not warmth but calculation. And that's exactly what's happening. Now, viewers who once adored their humor are noticing the discomfort in interviews, the defensiveness in responses, and the distance between what's said and what's shown. Meanwhile, the filmmaker they accused remains quiet, measured, and consistent, never reacting to the noise, never lashing out, just letting the process unfold. That silence has become its own statement more powerful than any press release. Because in a world obsessed with attention, refusing to perform becomes the loudest move of all. And the contrast between noise and calm, between spin and stillness, is shaping how the public sees everything now as entertainment outlets continue to dissect every moment from the courtroom to the red carpet. A bigger picture emerges. This isn't just about who said what or who deleted which messages. It's about credibility, who the audience chooses to believe when every story starts to sound like a script. And in that struggle, authenticity is the one currency that can't be faked. Those watching this unfold know that in Hollywood, nothing happens by accident. Leaks happen for a reason. Statements are crafted, and silence is rarely just silence. So when the actor at the center of the controversy refuses to join the media circus, that decision becomes a story in itself. People are calling it a masterclass in patience, while others say it's a reflection of confidence, the belief that truth needs no performance. And as that quiet strategy unfolds, the other side seems increasingly chaotic, contradictory, and anxious, a pattern that's hard to ignore. Because in every public battle, perception is power, and right now, that power is shifting away from the ones who once controlled it, toward the person who never tried to. And if that continues, the balance in this story might change forever, turning what began as a legal fight into a cultural reckoning for how fame and truth collide in the age of constant performance. The story has reached a point where silence feels heavier than words, because now every move made by the couple, every statement, every interview, every smile is being studied with suspicion. People are starting to realize that what once looked like perfect balance might have been carefully choreographed illusion. The charm, the humor, the witty banter that defined them for so long is no longer enough to cover the cracks forming underneath. And it all started when a journalist asked a simple question about the evidence that was supposed to exist, about the messages that would prove everything. And there was no answer, not a denial, not a confirmation, just deflection. And that silence was louder than any admission, because it confirmed what many had begun to suspect, that there was never any proof that this case was built on perception, not fact, on narrative, not reality. And once that idea took hold, it spread fast. The internet thrives on discovery, and nothing spreads faster than doubt, especially when fans feel they've been misled. Suddenly, old interviews are resurfacing, and every sentence is being re-examined, every gesture dissected, looking for signs that the story they were told might have been an act one clip shows. The actress talking about creative control, saying that producers begged her to change something, but she refused, and she smiled proudly as she said it. Back then it seemed like confidence. Now it feels like confession, because it doesn't match. The narrative of being overpowered, it doesn't fit the image of being a victim, it fits something else, something closer to command. And that single contradiction has shifted everything, because in Hollywood, image is power. And when that image starts to look inconsistent, it begins to collapse from the inside. Those who once called her brave are now calling her calculating. Those who once saw her husband as supportive are now questioning his influence. And it's not just fans, insiders too are stepping forward quietly, telling stories of tension behind the scenes, saying that decisions were made not through collaboration, but through control, that disagreements were met not with discussion, but dismissal, and that the same pattern repeated again and again, project after project, until reputations began to erode from within one industry source. Described it as a culture of quiet compliance, where people stopped offering ideas because they knew they would be rewritten anyway, and when the inevitable failure came, the blame always shifted somewhere else. It's a cycle that many recognize, but few speak about publicly, because in a town built on connections, silence is survival, but the cracks are too wide to hide now. Because this story has taken on a life of its own. It's no longer about one lawsuit or one disagreement. It's about the machinery of celebrity itself, about how image can be weaponized to control narratives and shape perception when the truth becomes inconvenient. Public relations fills the gaps. Selective leaks, anonymous sources, strategic sympathy, all crafted to keep the audience emotionally invested. But that strategy depends on one fragile thing: Belief, and that belief is fading fast because the more this couple tries to explain, the less convincing they sound. And the more the quiet filmmaker they accused starts to look like the steady one, the grounded one, the person who never needed to manipulate public opinion because his work spoke for itself. While they crafted statements, he let the silence speak, and that difference has become impossible to ignore. Entertainment journalists have begun to describe him as a symbol of quiet resilience. Someone who represents the opposite of what Hollywood has become, less about spin, more about sincerity. And that contrast has turned the entire narrative on its head. Because now people are starting to wonder if this entire controversy was ever about what it claimed to be. Maybe it was never about harm or justice. Maybe it was about control, about losing it and trying to get it back through any means possible. And that thought terrifies the public because it means that the line between truth and performance may have blurred long before anyone noticed. And as viewers, we start to ask ourselves how much of what we see in interviews, red carpet appearances, or carefully staged social media moments is real, and how much is written, directed, and produced like everything else in Hollywood. Because in a city where image is everything, authenticity becomes the rarest currency of all. And right now, authenticity is what separates the quiet filmmaker from the couple whose empire of charm is beginning to crumble one headline at a time, because every time they try to regain control of the narrative, the story shifts again. Every attempt at damage control looks more like panic. Every confident statement more like overcompensation. And that only deepens the sense that something is unraveling. Fast, what used to be applause has turned into analysis. What used to be admiration has become skepticism, and the very qualities that once made them beloved are now being interpreted as performance rehearsed and hollow, a mask, slowly slipping away. And in that space between what was promised and what is true, the audience feels something powerful. They feel betrayal. Because when a story we believe turns out to be a script, we stop trusting the storyteller. And in an industry built on illusion, losing trust means losing everything as this saga continues to unfold. New voices are coming forward quietly but firmly. People who worked close enough to see the tension beneath the surface, saying that behind every public smile was a private argument. Behind every post about love and laughter was a struggle for control. And that maybe the real story isn't about who won or lost a case, but about who they became in the process. One fighting to maintain silence, the other fighting to maintain relevance. And the irony is that the more they try to prove they're the heroes of this story, the more it feels like the audience has already chosen a different ending, one where the truth doesn't need to be shouted, because it reveals itself in the calm. After the noise, the silence after the storm. And that's exactly where this story is heading, toward a reckoning where charm can't hide contradictions, and where the truth finally stands on its own, without performance, without script, without spin-as. The dust begins to settle. One truth becomes impossible to ignore. The story that started as a simple legal battle has evolved into a mirror, reflecting the fragile nature of fame when illusion becomes identity and narrative becomes reality. The cracks will always find their way through because no amount of charm or spin can replace authenticity. The audience may forgive mistakes, but they never forget manipulation. And now the world is watching closely, not for the next statement or apology, but for what happens when the spotlight fades for good. The quiet filmmaker who chose truth over noise stands taller, not because of victory, but because of integrity. And that is what Hollywood often forgets. Beneath the glitter and power lies a simple law that truth always outlasts performance, and no matter how dazzling the act may seem, the curtain always falls. And when it does, the only thing left standing is what was real.